Okay, I'm about to show you the most powerful Android phone in the world right now. Oh. This one. Qualcomm have sponsored this video and sent over the first device ever to be running on their next-gen Snapdragon chipset. It's not much of a looker, but this is less about trying to be a polished product that you can go into a store and buy, more about being a showcase of the chip. It's Qualcomm saying this is what the next generation of phones will be capable of. They're calling it the Snapdragon 888, and there's 5 important things that it can do for your next phone. Of course, the first thing I did as a responsible adult was download half a Play Store's worth of games on it. But to be fair, that's actually a big part of it. The performance jump this year is actually even bigger than we saw last generation. They're saying that versus current flagships, it's 25% better when it comes to CPU and 35% better when it comes to graphics. But it's actually a little bit more than that, because this is the first time that phones are going to be able to use variable rate shading, which is the same tech used in next-gen gaming consoles to basically improve frame rates. It means that when you're playing games, instead of having to process every single pixel individually, it can actually group similar pixels together and just treat them as one. Like, let's say there was a flat brown wall in a game, and this wall took up 100 pixels. Instead of making the phone calculate how each pixel should be lit one by one, this technology lets it say, oh, the whole thing's brown, I'm just going to treat it as one. And this is such a resource saving that games could run 30% smoother straight away. And that's on top of the 35% extra performance we're getting from the graphics anyway. The caveat being, could developers have to integrate variable rate shading into their game for this to work? However, even without that, I've actually been using this as my gaming phone for a week now. I kind of walked myself into that one with the amount of games I downloaded. It's pretty good. It's the kind of power that means you can open up any game, go into the settings, crank literally every feature to its maximum, ignore the warning signs that come up, and still play the game at a silky smooth 60 frames per second. Plus, just the way that they built the chip means that automatically, without any extra tinkering at all, it'll boost the touch response times when playing. Games will just feel more immediate. Now technically it is also more battery efficient, but because it's being used to do more, because it's being pushed harder, I think battery life will be about the same as last year. Okay, but this is what I'm looking forward to the most. See, it's easy to forget that the chipset in your smartphone is not just about the CPU and the GPU power that it brings. It's like the brain of your phone. And so there's wider reaching implications, like the camera experience. You could think of a smartphone camera as a 3-part machine. You've got the image sensor, which is like the phone's eye. You've got the software processing, which is each phone's stylized take on what it sees. But in between these two things is the image signal processor, the thing that's actually interpreting what the sensor's capturing and turning it into a usable output that can then be stylized. And with this new 888 chip, you get a new image signal processor. And the interesting thing about it this time is that this is the first time you get a triple image signal processor, which basically means you've got 3 separate cores, each able to process their own stream of photos or videos at the same time. Or, to put it another way, a phone based on this chip can record not just one stream of 4K HDR video, but 3. You could record proper quality video from all 3 of your cameras at the same time, your main, your ultra-wide, and your telephoto. And even if you just wanted to record one video, like a normal person, having a triple ISP is still useful, because your phone can then simultaneously record the same clip at just multiple levels of exposure, and then mesh them all together to give you one perfectly exposed output. So Qualcomm's saying that phones based on this can pump out not just good dynamic range, but extreme dynamic range. Plus, just the fact that you've got this wider, faster processing pipeline means that you can take photos fast. Like you see in the iPhone 12 Pro, right? That can take 12 megapixel photos. Well, phones based on the 888 can shoot 12 megapixel shots 120 times in a second, which is obviously useful for capturing sports or fast-paced cat videos. I'd say just generally, the way to think about this chip is that it will raise the ceiling for what 2021 phones can do. Like, they'll be able to take photos at 200 megapixel resolution. They'll be able to take night mode shots in like 0.1 lux of light, which is so dark it's technically classified as night vision. And they'll be able to capture, save, and display photos in 10-bit color. Which, to be fair, is a super subtle point if all you're planning on doing is taking photos and then putting them straight on social media. But if you are planning on editing them, then it's a big jump. Because with 10-bit, every single pixel contains just more color information than standard 8-bit. So if you wanted to brighten something or adjust the contrast after you've shot it, it's got more of an ability to do so without degradation. Do just bear in mind though, that this isn't saying that every phone featuring the Snapdragon 888 is going to have all of these features. It's just saying that these are the tools that Qualcomm is going to offer to companies. It's up to them what they take. we'll see what happens. But one thing that I think is going to be an immediate improvement, like right off the bat, is connectivity. Because having a next generation chip means next generation Wi-Fi, next generation 5G, and even next generation Bluetooth. So, Wi-Fi is kind of evolving. You might know that right now, pretty much every smartphone can access both 2.4 GHz or 5 GHz Wi-Fi bands. You could think of 2.4 GHz like having a garden hose, but covering most of it up with your finger. This Wi-Fi travels far, but it's a really narrow stream, so it doesn't carry much data. You could think of 5 GHz like partially removing that finger. You all of a sudden get a way wider stream, a more powerful connection, but the range falls. Well, this chip can now access 6 GHz bands, which is like the next step after that. But with the additional benefit that right now, 6 GHz bands are almost uncontested. There's very few other devices that will be competing for your bandwidth. It's like an exclusive VIP club of Wi-Fi. But even if you don't have this, even when you're just on the more widely available 5 GHz bands, this is still faster Wi-Fi than last year's Snapdragon 865. 5G is better here. While almost every other phone, including the iPhone 12s, are using Qualcomm's last-gen modem, with a new chip comes a new modem. And it doesn't really change the fundamentals, it's still 5G, you still get the same max speeds, but you're more likely to get that 5G, you're more likely to have higher average speeds while using that 5G, and less power drained because of 5G. You do also get the new Bluetooth 5.2, which is one of those footnotes that's kind of really easy to gloss over, but I actually think it's quite cool. So when you're using Bluetooth now to, say, listen to music wirelessly, your phone can only send one stream of audio and it'll send it to one earbud. And then what's happening is that that earbud is having to relay it to the other earbud. But with Bluetooth 5.2, your phone will be able to send 2 streams of audio at the same time to each connected device. Which will just hopefully mean that the people who make these audio products won't have to fake it anymore. They can create a better stereo experience, and one that'll hopefully just sound crispy. Oh yeah, and underrated benefit of this new Bluetooth is broadcast audio, where just a large group of people can tune in to the audio from one device. You could in theory host your own silent disco, with each person tuning into your playlist through their earphones, providing they support Bluetooth 5.2. And then we've got AI. And you might know that I find it quite amusing how much companies love talking about AI, and also how the actual benefit to users is often not made very clear. But I think the best way to think about it is any phone you buy now will be using AI. More and more, tasks that were previously done with simple algorithms and commands will now be handed to AI, so that the phone can kind of learn and improve how it does them over time. For example, taking videos. Whereas an old phone would have had a fixed way of dealing with all videos, no matter what you're capturing, newer phones can actually look at the bits in your image and improve them. Like, that's a cat. We're going to use what we've learned about cats to make it look good. Oh, that part of the image is sky. What do we know about skies? And so on. AI is now being used to only keep apps open in the background that it thinks you'll open to save battery. It's used to tell you what song is being played in the room currently, referencing it against its ever-growing database. Just hundreds of day-to-day tasks. And so, without getting into the nitty-gritty of the Hexagon 780 AI processor inside the Snapdragon 888, the important takeaway is that this can do AI tasks 73% faster with 3 times better power efficiency. Okay, there's one final thing, and I wasn't really expecting to talk about it because I thought it'd be kind of boring, but the new Snapdragon has 2 really interesting security tricks. So, we live in a world of fakes. You scroll through social media, you see an outrageous photo, you often don't actually know if it's real or not. And to be honest, the only thing that's going to get harder as editing software just gets more sophisticated. So, what this chip can do is add a seal of authenticity onto any photo you take on your phone. You could think of it like sealing up a letter. So if anyone tries to tamper with the image inside, that seal will have to be broken. It does feel like a good first step in bringing a bit of trust back to digital content. You see something, you'll be able to know if it's been altered. And the second thing is, it's a new feature called Hypervisor, which lets you switch between 2 completely isolated operating systems on the same phone, which would let you have, let's say, both a work and a home profile. But in this case, because they're completely separated operating systems, flicking between them would be the equivalent of switching between 2 completely separate devices with separate sets of app data. Okay, that's pretty much it. The Snapdragon 888 chipset. I'm sure you'll be hearing about it a lot in flagship phones starting next year. Still no. Thanks for watching. My name is Aaron. This is Mr. Who's the Boss. And I'll catch you in the next one.